Welcome back to another episode of How I Franchise This. Today I'm joined by Aaron Harper, the founder of Rolling Suds. Before owning a brand, Aaron spent years in franchise development, seeing firsthand what works and what doesn't across a lot of different concepts. That eventually led him to Rolling Suds and making the jump into ownership. I'm excited to dig into why Rolling Suds stood out, why power washing made sense as a category, and what it's really like scaling a brand quickly. Aaron, thanks for being here and joining the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here, Alex.
Yeah, so I was telling Aaron at the beginning of this that I was like, this is like a fanboy moment for me. I wasn't doing any content a year ago. I was I guess, a lurker, people would call it. I'm on the platforms. I'd comment, I'd like things, but I wasn't really contributing beyond that. And then as we started doing Franzi, I realized, there's this power in content and getting messaging out there. And Aaron, from the beginning, has done a phenomenal job of that for Rolling Suds, for the franchise industry. So this is a pretty awesome moment for me getting to hear from one of the guys who really, I think, has taken this seriously, especially in our category. So thanks again for being here. And for those listening, I think they might know you as, the Rolling Suds guy and the franchise guy on social. But before franchising, what were you doing? Have you always been doing this, or what was life like before?
No, I mean, thanks for the kind words. I'm super impressed by what you're doing as well, and excited that we're on this franchising journey together. Um, so I never knew what franchising was till a few years ago. Like until I got into this, I had no clue. Like I thought franchising was McDonald's. I thought it was Chick-fil-A. Like I think like many people that don't know what franchising is, like that's just what you think. And prior to this, I literally was training to be like a Hollywood agent. So I was working with like actors, like Academy, like I've held an Academy Award, like working with Academy Award winning actors, writers, directors, and helping them get jobs, working on their management teams. Kind of the liaison between the talent and the managers and the agents, training. That's what everyone does. They start as an assistant, and then you're an agent trainee, and then you're a junior agent, and then you're an agent.
Huh.
And what I realized is like that is like a very vapid industry, and like I was losing myself in it. I wasn't happy. It wasn't what I wanted to do long term, and it took me a few years to kind of realize that, and kind of getting to a pretty just dark place, just like, gosh, is this what I was supposed to do? And then I was like, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. And after school, going to school for it, and going to Los Angeles, and like working with like Will Smith and Melissa Leo and Jesse Eisenberg and like big actors, I was like, this isn't what I want to do long term. And so I was like, so what do I want to do when I grow up? And I asked, I called a bunch of different friends of mine. I asked them what they were doing. I looked into medical sales for a little while. I did B2B telecommunication sales as kind of a figure it out job. Became the top rep at AT&T nationwide.
Wow.
And then was like, wait a minute, I don't want to do this either. Like I want to actually really make like a difference, like I want to like change lives. And getting someone to switch from Spectrum to AT&T, or from Verizon AT&T as a business, because I was doing business to business sales, like wasn't fulfilling me. And I talked to a buddy of mine, and he's like, you should get into franchising. And I was like,
Hmm.
dude, I don't want to like, help people open Wendy's locations. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, why would I want to do that? He goes, no, like there are all these other businesses that are franchises. And he told me that like Two Men in a Truck is a franchise, and ServPro is a franchise, and Stanley Steamer, and like 1-800 Got Junk. And like, these are brands I know, but I didn't know they were franchises. And what I fell in love with is the idea of helping someone, like someone who maybe might not start a business on their own, become a business owner. And so I emailed his boss 7 times with unanswered emails until he finally hired me. And I worked at ChemDry. That was my first job in franchising. And that's where I learned kind of like how to, do franchise development, how to help people buy franchises, and grew that brand by about 200 units within 3 years.
Wow.
The first 3 years that I was in franchising. And then they bought a brand called the Patch Boys, which is a drywall repair concept that was effectively a turnaround brand that they bought in COVID. And me and a brand president turned it around, and we grew it from 98 units to 323 units in 2 years. And all those units opened, and they were all, generally, other than the bottom, 10% or whatever, which is always the case, generally profitable within the first six months or so. And if you saw where that brand was when I inherited it, you would have been like, Aaron, there's no way. You might as well just give up and go back to Hollywood. So it was really exciting to be able to take an emerging brand, reestablish it in the marketplace, and build systems that worked. So the company I was working for at the time was like, hey, Aaron, love what you've done with these two brands. We want to pay more money and have you do this with a brand that's not a franchise yet, and you can franchise it. And I thought that was a great idea. So I decided to do it on my own. I turned the roll down, which was, I would have made about $1 million a year, on target earnings. My wife was 6 months pregnant, and I said, I can do this on my own. And so I turned it down, and I looked at a bunch of different businesses across the country to franchise in the service space. And I found Rolling Suds as the 23rd business I evaluated.
Were they franchised at all at that point, or was it an independent?
So it was an independent. They had paid a consulting company to franchise them. But they realized, hey, this is going to cost way more money than I'm willing to invest. And then they run the risk of losing the business that they built, because they weren't entirely removed from that business. So they were like, well, what if I just partnered with the franchisor? Franchisor does it. We'll take less equity, but we can keep running our business and keep owning our business. And so I raised capital. We made a deal that made sense for everyone. I raised capital from people like David Barr and Brad Fishman, and just legends in the franchise industry who could help and guide in addition to capitalize. And we took the brand to market February of 2023. And now we went from one single location power washing business in Pennsylvania. We have 333 units in 37 states now.
Wow. Well, let's, hell of a journey. And from Hollywood and, then getting into telecom sales to franchise development, and then eventually owning a franchise brand and taking it off. I guess a couple questions I had were like, when you mentioned like doing Hollywood, it felt vapid and it's like wasn't for you. That has to be soul crushing at first, right? Of like, hey, this thing that I thought I was going to do my whole life, I dreamed of it. Did you feel like a weight was lifted when you made that decision, or did it feel like bittersweet, or what was that like making that transition? Because I think some people listening are probably thinking of their own transition, and I think it'd be helpful to hear how that was.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I relate to so many different people who are becoming franchisees, is like they're leaving something that they've thought they were supposed to do forever that's not hitting the mark for them. It's not checking the boxes anymore, but they're making great money and, feel like that would be quitting to leave. And I don't make any bones about it. Like it's terrifying to leave something that you are comfortable with that you're supposed to do, that's paying you well, to go out into the unknown and have no clue what to do. But I think we've all heard the quote of like, when the pain of staying the same becomes worse than the pain of changing, you end up changing. And so it was just a matter of saying, what do I want? Which pain am I willing to endure any longer? And so, yeah, you kind of step out into the unknown. You have no idea what you're going to do. medical sales was something that I was close on potentially pursuing. This is way better. If anyone has ever been in franchising, and it's like it's the best industry ever. I've heard people say it's not an industry. It is an industry. It's the same people that run the whole thing. So, you have to kind of like put yourself in a point of discomfort to grow. And that's just like the reality of it.
You mentioned too the first job you took, it was ChemDry. Was that the first?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like many people, you thought, oh, it's McDonald's, it's Subway, it's these huge food concepts. When you start to see like ChemDry and brands like Rolling, and you see these other things, are you like, huh, this is way bigger than I thought, and it spans way more industries than I thought? Or what was your initial reaction after realizing it's not just McDonald's?
Yeah. So the first initial reaction was this is a lot more accessible than I thought. So I think a lot of people that think about franchising, they're like, well, I don't have $1 million. You actually don't need $1 million for like 50. I think it's like 56% of franchises aren't food franchises.
Mm-hmm.
So they range from $25,000 to, more. But like, you can get a great service business and invest $200,000 to $400,000, like all in that range, and go out and build a service business that you can penetrate a market as much as you want. Like if you build a Wendy's, you are constrained to like what can happen within those four walls. You buy a service business, you can go out and build it as big as you want to build it. Yeah. So for me, it was like, this is a lot more accessible than I thought. Therefore, I can help more people. Versus like, oh, I can only help people who have $1.2 million to open a McDonald's. Like that's not that many people, right? So that was a big piece for me. And then, yeah, so just understanding like also that franchisees own 100% of their business. Like I didn't know that. I thought like that a lot of franchises were like the Chick-fil-A model where like they're a general manager and like, you really don't have ownership. And it's like, no, franchisees can they can grow a business that they own 100% of and they can sell it. And so I saw this opportunity to like help people really like truly change their lives in a way that they wouldn't frankly be able to do just keeping a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I used to be like, I don't want to say anti-franchising, but I think like a lot of people, I thought it's all right. It's these huge brands that are $3-4 million plus to build, or it's these emerging brands and it feels like this like slimy underbelly and who knows what's going on. It's the Wild West. And the more I've had exposure to it and the more people I've talked to, it's like there really is an option for everyone. There's still all the diligence you need to do. Is it a good brand? Is it the right macro trends? Is the team behind it good? Are they well capitalized? All these things still matter, just like if you were buying Aaron and Alex's car wash, you still have to do diligence. You still need to look for things, but it is way bigger, way more accessible. There's way more variety than I think I thought there was. And it is a good path for 90% of America who might not want to go build some, tech company that's this original idea that has a 10% chance of success. But if it does succeed, it's going to be $1 billion outcome and all these things. That's not the norm. That's the exception. And I think franchising allows people to be entrepreneurs in a more accessible, lower risk, de-risked way to do it. So I get the allure. And I mean, everything you've described is like this, there is something here. There's a business model. It's vast. There's options. For you, when you said, all right, now the top's been blown off, you're like, all right, franchising is something that I enjoy. I can see it. It's accessible to most people. When did it switch to, hey, I'm in franchising and I'm helping develop brands, to I want to be an owner, I want to build a brand and have equity in it, and turning down $1 million OTE job to do it? When did that switch flip for you?
So it was like 2022, end of 2021, when people started like going outside, and COVID was like subsiding a little bit. I was like, I want to see more than what's just in my company. Like I want to go to conferences and so I told my company I was working for, I'm like, I'm either going to pay for the tickets to go to these conferences or you are. There's a bunch of reasons why it's beneficial for you to pay for them. And so they ended up paying for them. And I went to these conferences and I just saw people building meaningful wealth through building like franchise brands. And frankly, like I thought I could do it. Not only this, I thought I could do it better. Like I just had more experience, right? Like if you think
Yeah.
about your average franchisor, it's someone who has a great business and then they decide to franchise it. Like that's the majority of franchises. And some of them have had like resounding, tremendous success. I was coming at it from the perspective of, wait a minute, I've done this now. And I've been directly or indirectly involved with 13 different service brands through the platform company I was working at. And so I'd seen a lot more than most of these other people who were building brands with no experience in franchising specifically. So it's like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? And I just realized that I'm just generally unemployable. I'm just like, no matter what you tell me, like I'm going to find a better way to do it. And then I'm going to try to convince everyone else to do it my way. And that's how I've done it at every company I've worked for. And so it's like, well, if I'm just in control, then I can just tell everyone how to do it. And then we can all have success. And so, you know, for me, it was like, I also was able to calculate, since I was able to see the landscape, kind of the enterprise value that I added to the company I was working for in a 24-month time span. I mean, it was, you know, a lot of digits that I added. And I was grateful for that opportunity. They paid me very well to do that, and I have no problem with it. But ultimately what I'm after is being able to change the lives of people who become franchisees, and also, as in doing that, change the life of me and my family, and build something that matters. And so I just turned it down and decided to go find one. And I you know, there's no book online, or you can't Google, like, how do I acquire a 35-year-old service business and turn it into a franchise brand? Like, it doesn't exist. Like, there's no deal structure. There's no like recommended anything. So I was really like waiting kind of in the Wild West of like, how do I actually do this? And that was the first kind of challenge, which was, how do I structure a deal that motivates everyone? How do I raise capital? How do I pick a pre-money valuation that people are going to believe in? How do I get people to give me money? How do I, you know, all of that stuff I had no playbook for.
Did you, when you started your search to find the right, you've decided to do this, you're now ready to start looking for brands. Did you keep your day job and then look at this on the side, or was it,
So
I went all in and quit?
So funny story, and I don't think I've shared this publicly, but so I did it privately. I didn't want to leave, you know, not have health insurance and all that.
Yep.
But so I did it kind of off the books. I was never going to compete in any direct brand with any of the brands that were at the company that I was at. And whenever I found the brand, I was going to make sure that I gave my company ample amount of time to replace me and continue to keep deal flow going. But I had to create a separate company, like LLC. It couldn't just be like Aaron's looking. It had to be like Aaron of, you know, the company that I created, and website and the whole deal. And then one time I accidentally emailed my boss from that email address. And we were on a meeting and he couldn't find the email. And I'm like, I sent it to you. What do you mean? With all the other VPs. And he's like, Aaron, what's Franchise Overdrive? And he's like, did you need a conversation at the end of this meeting? And I was like, yep, we sure do. So at the end of the meeting, basically, he's like, what's this? And I was like, well, I was going to tell you, but I didn't want to tell you until I found something. It's not going to compete with any of the brands you guys have here, but I'm not going to go work for someone else. I'm going to become a business owner. And he was like, well, I can't fault you for wanting to become a business owner. I'm just glad you're not going to go work for someone else. Cause I mean, I had a ton of offers and people wanted me to come work for them. And anyways, he was super understanding. He's like, keep doing your job. It's all good. And a month later, his boss was not super understanding. So his boss let me go.
Mm.
But what was wild about that experience is because I accidentally let him know, I was able to go to Springboard, which was literally, I let him know like on Wednesday, left for Springboard like that night or whatever. I forget what it was. It was like the next day I was going to Springboard. So I was able to tell everyone. I was able to sing from the highest mountaintops of what I was looking for. And it was at Springboard that I met the founders of Rolling Suds. So everything kind of
That's
falls into
amazing.
place for, because I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have told everyone because I didn't want to be rude and,
Right.
whatever. So it ended up working out great. I mean, I didn't have the deal secured and I hadn't raised the capital yet when I got let go. So the boats were burned. But from October of 2022 to January of when I acquired the brand, I just basically started acting as if I was the CEO of the company. Before the deal was closed, I was investing tens of thousands of dollars in my own money in rebranding the logo, the building the website, securing suppliers, obviously legal costs,
Yep.
really just making it, because I knew we needed to launch by February and we needed to sell franchises by, June at the latest in order to make this work. I knew how much cash, it was going to take to get this going. So I just made it happen.
I want to come back to something you said from October to January in a second, but I like the anecdote you shared of, hey, your boss finds out. He's super understanding at first. Eventually, his boss was not. But I was shocked by when I decided to leave Ernst& Young to go start a laundry startup. I was terrified to go speak to partners. I thought they were going to laugh at me like, you're leaving a big four consulting job and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. They go do this like unsexy kind of dirty business. And I had the exact opposite. These partners, these guys who are making probably over $1 million a year, like they're on that corporate ladder path. One of the guys who everyone was kind of like not scared of, but like he had this like attitude and persona of like being one of the bosses in the Charlotte office. And he started tearing up and was like, Alex, I'm like 8 years old. I do really well, but I still wake up every day and got to go work for someone else. And like, yes, I got equity here, but it's not the same as my own thing.
Yeah.
And I had this idea to go start my own practice when I was in my late 20s, and I never did it. And I think about it all the time. And so it's like, I see you actually going to do it. And like, I'm really glad that you are, and that you're, have the balls basically to go do this. And Alex, if it doesn't work out, we'll hire you back in a heartbeat because you're probably going to be better equipped to manage people and problem solve
Yeah.
than any of the people that we keep here. And I just like that will never leave me because it gave me permission. Not that I needed the permission, but it gave me this perspective of like the person who's going to laugh at me and the person who's like made it in corporate America, like regrets not doing what I'm about to go do. And not only that, said he'll take me back in a heartbeat. So I think it's cool that you had a similar experience. And for anyone listening that is thinking about taking that leap or that jump again, you'd be surprised by how supportive even your own boss might be, and that you're never going to know if you don't go after it and give it a try. And Aaron's where he is now doing what he's doing, and I'm over here doing the stuff that I'm doing. And it's possible if you are willing just to take some of that risk and realize things might not actually be as bad as they feel like they are. So thanks for sharing that. You mentioned you go to Springboard, there's like this serendipity. You said you looked at 28 other deals. I guess two questions. One was, what kind of criteria did you have? How are you searching? How are you looking? And then the second question is, you said in October, I think you were at Springboard and you met them in January, you closed. So like once you found them, was this like a 3-month
Oh yeah.
process? And how did
Oh yeah.
that work? And let's go into those two details. How were you searching initially? And then how the hell did you close in 3 months with no capital? And how did that all come together? That sounds
That was
crazy.
wild. It was probably one of the most wild times of my life. So as for the criteria, I always tell people that they need to, whether they're acquiring a brand, like whether they're acquiring a business that's like existing or they're buying into a franchise, like they need to have a checklist of things that they're looking for in order to objectively look at concepts. Like it can't just be like, how much money does this concept make? Like, because you as the operator are different than other operators. Like, and so you need to know what your skill sets are. And for me, when you're looking at a franchise, you want it to be able to work in every market, right? Like, or at least if you want to build a billion-dollar company. Like it can't, like there's like franchises that do like deer repellent, right? Like that's to me only going to work in a certain amount of markets, or like
Yep.
airplane cleaning. And it's like, well, that's only going to work in a certain amount of markets. So you're going to have a cap.
Yep.
So a total addressable market for me being massive was very important.
Okay.
And so when you think about power washing specifically, yeah, sure, you have homes and residential buildings. But the commercial side of the business is really where this business becomes interesting. We've cleaned stadiums, banks, hotels, overpasses, college campuses, high schools, shopping centers, and so these are larger jobs that take longer to close and have more decision makers, but one contract can dramatically change the life of a franchisee. And so the total addressable market for the power washing industry is large. So covers both residential. It services both a want and a need. So if you
Yep.
have a home, you want it to look nice. You also don't want algae to be growing on the roof because you need to keep your roof free of algae, right? So
Yep.
this is a want and a need. So you kind of have the carrot and the stick, so to speak, in the need from the consumer standpoint. High margins for the franchise owner when the business is at scale. And what that means is when you've opened multiple units and you have multiple trucks on the road, are the profit margins for the franchisee 20% or higher? And this business meets that, right? Because then you still need to have the franchisor still needs to make money above that, right? So that was important. Scalability. So what I mean by that is everyone throws that word out. It doesn't cost that much money for a franchisee to open another location. So when you think about opening another McDonald's, like you need to outlay another $1.2 million and take on debt and find real estate and all that. Whereas with Rolling Suds, to open another unit, you just literally buy another truck and you put the truck in the unit with 2 team members that run the truck, and you can get a truck for 35 grand down or less, right? So you now are opening other units for, let's call it 125 grand. And so that is scalable from the perspective of it's not a super high level of risk to then go and open another location. Unskilled labor was a checkbox for me. We struggled with that with Patch Boys. You needed 5 or more years of drywall experience in order to be an employee. And so there's only so many of those people in a market. And there's even less of those people in a market that have those skills and want to work for someone else. And so you struggle there. The owner isn't able to train their team members. If the team member leaves, they can't do the work. So they're really in a crunch there. Whereas with power washing specifically, it takes us 2 days to get a technician trained up, like literally 2 days. So you can really kind of grow your business as fast as you want. You can be quick to hire and quick to fire. And then, there was a recession element that was important to me. I had seen a business through COVID. I had seen, I just wanted longevity in the existing business, or something that this best was longevity. Second best was something that I thought had the ability to get through tough times. This business has been around for now 35 years. So has proven that it can withstand the ups and downs in an economy. There were 2 things though that were on my list. Like those were all non-negotiables. Okay. There were 2 things on my list that were negotiable or that I didn't necessarily need. They were nice to have. The first, was a difference in product offering. And what I mean by that is, like, if you have a better product and you are coming to market, like Franzi is objectively a better product than what the market is known for currently. You guys have a better product, therefore you have a moat, right? Like you have a moat. With service businesses, there's not a lot of moats, right? It's like who answers the phone fastest, right? But if you have a moat, you can get to scale faster. So we can do we can power wash a 3,000 square foot house in 20 minutes, start to finish, set up,
Wow.
tear down, everything. And this is because of trucks that the founding location built, that they've figured out how to make work that's better and more effective than everyone else. We can power wash 5 stories from the ground, and we can just be faster
Wow.
and more efficient with our trucks. So we have a product that is objectively better than all the other competitors, and no one else can get that unless you're a Rolling Suds franchisee. So now the franchisee buying in has like a machine gun, and they're showing up to a knife fight because they're a franchisee. So now there's value for the franchise owner. The final nice to have was little to no competition in the franchise space. And so if you think about every service industry, generally they've been professionalized by either franchises or institutional capital or both.
Yep.
And I was often looking at brands, and there were 5 to 7 other franchises that were already in the space that had already achieved massive scale. So like restoration, as an example, you already have ServPro. So you're stepping into a market. Now you have to capture market share from the 800-pound gorillas, which is doable. It's just harder versus getting into a space and being the 800-pound gorilla. And so when I looked at power washing, there was not a household name in power washing. It didn't exist. And so if you are first to market from a franchise perspective, and you have a better product, and all those other boxes are checked, you can really get to scale quickly, which is part of the reason why we've gotten to scale quickly.
Mm-hmm. And so going back to you meet the Rolling Suds guys at Springboard, and then you put the deal together in 3 months, a day after you come clean to your current employer, like, hey, I'm doing this. Feels like a compressed timeline. Like, how did you get that together? How did you raise the capital? How did you, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing too, like, what does the deal look like? Is it seller financing? Do they roll equity? Are you taking on debt? Is it all private capital? Like, how did that work?
So no debt. What I did basically was like, you know what? I'm going to take on all the risk here. I'm going to raise all the capital. I'm going to invest my own money, and you get to keep, this is the founding family, you get to keep 100% of your business.
Okay.
So the risk for them, like financially, was less considerably than if they were to go do it on their own. So I'm the majority shareholder in the company. I have minority investors who are have a few points roughly. They invested capital and time, and they continue to invest time. And if we need more capital, we haven't needed to because we've been profitable. But part of the reason I built the board in the way that I built it is so that we could go back to the pot if we needed to. What was important for me was raising smart money. There's a lot of dumb money out there. There's a lot of people who just want to write a check and then collect a return on that however many years later. It was also important for me that my investors were patient and didn't need the money. So this is like not their main investment. Like they've got plenty of other ones. They've got businesses that they run. So patient, smart capital was a strategy that I took. I had to come up with a pre-money valuation that literally no one agreed with, but I had to then agree to say, this is what it is. And they're like, but there's nothing. I'm like, but this is what it is, which is why raising capital is so hard, is you've got this vision for what it is, and everyone else is telling you it's not that. And then you need to get them to give you the money so that you can make it that. And you don't want to dilute yourself too much to the point where you're not going to have the motivation to make it that. So it's this very like 3D chess kind of, and so what I did is I had a friend who's known me for years. She had just sold her company, franchisor, and she had capital to deploy. And I was like, listen, I'm doing this thing. I like promise you it's going to go bananas. The minimum investment is 100,000. The maximum is 150 per person. I need to know within a week. And then I'll need to have the money within a week after that. And she was like, okay. And then, I invested my own money at the same terms that that person was investing. And then I went to the other investors and I said, here's the deal.
Yep.
And some of them participated and some of them didn't. And then the founders, they also participated because they wanted to capture more upside. And so now I have everyone rowing in the same direction, agreeing upon a valuation that motivates everyone to get in there and drive the ship. And within 9 months, the founding family's son asked, and he's the one who like quadrupled the size of his dad's business and got it ready for franchising, asked if he could come be part of our leadership team.
That's awesome.
And now he oversees our national accounts team, which is like a big initiative for us. So I structured a deal that made sense for everyone. I don't know how, but we did.
That's awesome. I mean, doing that during the holidays in short order, and when you're transitioning out of another job to this, and there's kids. I think at that point, how many kids and how old are they at that point for you?
My wife was 6 months pregnant. She was 7 months pregnant when I got let go. I go on Cobra. My daughter was born November 16th of 2022, and I acquired the brand like January 8th, 2023.
You're a madman. That's crazy. That's awesome. I mean, congrats for pulling it off and getting it together. So again, to the extent you're comfortable sharing, how much total did you raise, and how much do you think a brand needing to franchise should have? Because I'm with you. I think this is expensive. It's not cheap to franchise a business. What do you think is the right starting amount? Let's say you've got less than, I don't know, 10 units open, and you're like, hey, there's enough conviction here. I want to franchise. What do you think that like ballpark amount is? And
yeah. So the number varies based upon the concept and based upon the skill set of the operator. So the more, and the operator meaning me, of the franchisor. So the less experience you have in franchising a business, the more money you want to raise. So I had a really in-depth conversation about this with Tony Hulbert, who's a good friend of mine. He's a CEO of Horsepower Brands, and I had him on my podcast a few weeks ago. And just to give you guys an idea, like for those who listen, they've launched 9 brands. They can sell franchises at the drop of a hat because they've got the systems and the infrastructure to do that. And they still put between $1.5 to $2 million towards a brand before launching it.
Wow.
Okay. So if you don't have experience in franchising and you decide to go to market with your concept and you have less than $1 million, you're going to struggle, and you'll have to raise capital later, which could work. Also, if you go and hire a franchise sales organization, there's nothing wrong with franchise sales organizations in theory, in concept, but you need more money because you won't have any of this franchise fees left. And so the way the model works is franchisees need the most amount of help when they produce the least amount of royalties. So your franchise fees that you collect should go visibly towards the support to launch the franchise locations.
Yep.
If you hire an outsourced sales organization and you forego 90% of the franchise fees that you collect, you will need considerably more capital. So I think that like people don't understand how much capital it really truly takes to franchise your business. You'll need 200 to 250 grand probably allocated before you've even sold your first franchise, just for franchise development. Probably 150 to 200 grand for like marketing and materials, and then you need to vet
Legal.
suppliers, which is going to be service level agreements. We have 44 suppliers. Think of the legal costs associated with getting those agreements in place. All this happens before you franchise, before you've even taken the brand to market. So that's 7 months of like infrastructure and your time going towards building the brand, which all of that costs money. You need to hire multiple people before you need them at the beginning. That's another 300-400 grand. Like, so, and that's assuming that you sell franchises right away and are able to keep a portion of the franchise fee. So we do all of our franchise sales in house, and a lot of our franchise sales are offset by the content that I put out, which decreases our cost to acquire a franchisee, which is our biggest outgoing expense in terms of commissions and fees and all of these things that we pay,
Yep.
which we're happy to pay. But if you can offset that with organic lead generation through content, then you're able to keep more to the bottom line, which means you're able to build a bigger team. So like I stepped into a chairman of the board role about 6.5 months ago. We have a full C-suite that supports our franchise owners, and they all have teams underneath them. And we would not have been able to do that if we didn't raise a significant amount of money and if we didn't keep a large portion of the franchise fees in that we collect up front. And so David Barr and I were talking about this. We think that for an average person that has no experience in franchising, they need between $2 to $4 million to franchise their business.
Wow. That's wild. But helpful to know. I mean, it makes sense. Again, like it's all this stuff adds up. Like you said, you've got, especially if there's broker fees and FSO fees, and you're scaling. I mean, someone told me the other day that the average franchise doesn't hit royalty sufficiency until they're at like 60 units, open and mature. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it varies across service versus retail. I mean, that's wild.
It's about 100 or 50 million in system-wide sales.
Yeah. So I don't think a lot of
If
people
you're doing
appreciate
it
that
right,
or understand
you
it.
have the right infrastructure in place. Now, theoretically, you could have less infrastructure. The franchisees could crush it and they don't need as much support and you could get to there faster.
Mm-hmm.
But 16% of franchisors make it to 100 units.
Wow.
A significantly smaller portion of that 16% do it in less than 10 years. I think I read that like somewhere 680 of the like roughly 3,500 franchisors are at 100 units and have reached 100 units. Like 90 of them did it in less than 10 years. Like 90.
You're a rare company.
Yeah, so like we did it in 12 months and then we got all those units open. Like we got over 100 units open now. So it's like it ranges, but it's like between probably 35 to 50 million in system-wide sales or 100 open units, depending on what the unit economics look like. And then even then you're just getting started. Because now you got to help everyone get the franchisees get to scale. Like it's a lot easier for a franchisor to get to scale than it is for each individual unit to help them get to scale. Like so it's like, and the franchisor is always going to be ahead just by the nature of how the model works, the franchisees. Yep. And so you kind of pre-invest in that growth. So like every dollar we collect, we put it back into infrastructure to help franchise owners be successful.
Yep.
So anyways, yeah, I mean, it's a crazy amount of money. And 9 times out of 10, the people that come up to me and telling me they want to franchise their business, I'm like, cool. How much money do you have? 9 times out of 10, it's less than 100 grand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just not enough. And they're being pursued by like 12 different franchise sales organizations to sell their brand. I'm like, you don't have enough money to open 1 unit, let alone go sell 100 with a franchise sales organization. Like, that's just a bad move. Like, don't do that.
Yep.
So one thing that's like kind of where I see a lot of challenges.
Yeah, I think people, and it's more so today, it's becoming more competitive. I think private equity is getting more and more involved, and things just, it feels like they cost more and they're more complicated and competitive than they used to be. And so you got to have a war chest if you're going to go to war and, start getting into the game. I totally agree with that. I was going to ask a few questions around, I mean, you guys did have a ton of rapid growth. It sounds like you also learned some of that at ChemDry and the other Fran Dev experience that you had. outside of a lot of the content that you've done, which has been a huge part of your guys' growth, what other you kind of best practices, things do you think attributed to that growth? And then a second part of that question is, you've seen a ton of different franchisees. Is there a common thread that, the most successful franchisees have? Is it their attitude? Is it how well capitalized they are? What do you
Yeah,
see
I'll
in the
answer
most
that one
successful
first because that's
franchisees?
easy. In a service business, it's a sales business. If you're not comfortable going out, shaking hands with people, getting into your community, like we can help you become comfortable, but it makes it a lot easier if it's something you enjoy. If it's like you want to stay behind the computer and analyze numbers and like delegate and this and that, service might not be the right direction to go. Um, Largely because initially, like we're a B2B sales business, right? And like outsourcing a commercial sales role at the beginning, you're a brand new business. Like the property manager that manages 1,000 doors doesn't want to talk to some random salesperson. They want to talk to the owner. And then once they talk to the owner, now they're going to give them their 1,000 doors and they're never going to call anyone else as long as that relationship is maintained. And so a big piece of the business is sales and relationships and being in your community.
Hmm.
As for what we do, um, like you want to hire. So what we've always done is we've hired before we've needed the people. And that's scary because you're like, I'm going to invest in this person and we don't need them yet. But in 6 months, if we keep going the direction we have in terms of awarding units and getting them open, we need them to be trained up and ready to handle whatever, is about to be thrown at them. And so, like, not only do you need to have that war chest of money set aside, you then need to take the money you collect and invest it back in. And so like it's really just like how much cash can you put into the business so that you can get to scale to where you get to royalty break even, and now you can start to really focus on growth and national accounts, which is what we're doing now. Which you can't do unless you get to scale.
Yeah.
You have to have at least 100 units or more to go get national accounts. We're doing jobs with like Starbucks and Popeyes and Panda Express and Kimco and like schools across the country and a variety of different things. But the main the main function at the beginning of a franchisor is getting to scale. And so if you don't know how to sell franchises, like you need to either do it in house and learn or hire an organization that can do it. But knowing that if you hire an organization to do it, you'll need double the amount of money that you thought you needed.
Yeah.
Or not that you thought you needed, that I said you needed, not that you thought you needed. um, and that's like just the reality of it. So, but it's a beautiful business. Like we have people that have already made like generational wealth within the first year to year and a half of owning the business. And some of that we've been able to deliver to them in terms of work that we've awarded them from the national accounts team. And in some cases, it's changed the world of franchise
Wow.
owners and justified the entire investment with one job that we've delivered them. And so like when it works, it works beautifully.
Hmm.
But it needs, the franchisor needs to be all in. They need to be willing to invest the money. They need to be willing to travel a lot. I travel a lot. A buddy of mine, Dan Claps, he took
Yep.
43 trips last year. This year, 43. Like you're going to discovery days, you're going to broker conferences, you're going to visit franchisees in the field, you're doing conferences, you're doing regional meetings, you're going like you're on the road all the time. And but in doing that, you build something that's meaningful that has presence in, I mean, we're in 37 states at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
You need to create that center of gravity.
yeah. And you as the owner of the franchisor are that until
Yep.
you can afford to put someone in that role that isn't, which is what we've been able to do now with Tom Gisler as the CEO of Rolling Suds.
Well, Aaron, I've got one last kind of like big picture view on franchising question, and then I want to wrap up with a few like quick hitter, one sentence or two questions. So the last big picture question is, You started the conversation with like, I used to think franchising was McDonald's and Subway until I got into it and I learned all these things. What's something you think a lot of people still misunderstand about the franchise industry, the franchise business model that, the majority of people get wrong?
I think I think the people that think that franchising is just all bad are missing out on an opportunity uh to see a like they're missing out on an opportunity to either recommend a franchise that would work for their friend who might not be a business owner on their own. I think there's a lot of bias in largely the entrepreneurial community of like, oh, well, I was able to start a business on my own and franchises are like less than or something like that. The reality of it is like you're going to pay one way or the other. You're going to either pay in a royalty and an upfront fee to have all the systems already ironed out for you, or you're going to pay in time and money and mistakes in going to try to figure all that out on your own. And I
Mhm.
think I feel like there's this like, franchising's like this redheaded stepchild of the entrepreneurial world. And I think those people are missing the boat. Now, are they justified in saying that there are about a large amount of franchise brands that don't end up working? Absolutely. But a franchisor is just a normal business. Like it's not like franchisors are like there's still a failure rate for franchisors just as there are with normal businesses. The difference is you
Mhm.
just have franchisees underneath you that are counting on you. Um so to say, hey, there's a lot of franchisors that fail, so all franchisors are bad is a huge missed opportunity for anyone. And I think anyone that's going out and saying that and like making that their kind of like message, especially coming from the franchise industry, like there's a few people out there that are like all emerging franchisors are bad. It's like, dude, every franchisor was once
It's a
emerging. Like, what do you
startup.
mean? Yeah, and like
Yeah, it's a startup.
these are also people who have never franchised a business before. And so I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of negativity around it that people really get wrong because like if you think about Orange Theory Fitness as an example, like people probably thought like their friends and family and brothers and sisters were like, you're going to buy an orange gym that like is a membership based model that's like $300. Are you out of your mind? Like no one's going to go to an orange gym. And everyone probably told them they were wrong. And those people that bought in that have 7, 8 studios now that have sold to private equity, like they're they're laughing all the way to the bank. And so
hmm
there's just like this like negativity, and it's largely because the people within the franchise industry who are loud, let's just say, are not succeeding. And that's why they're loud. Whereas like the franchisees who are out there with like 16, we have a franchisee that's 15 units and 6 trucks. Like he's not loud. He's got operating partners and he's crushing it and he's got 6 trucks on the road and he started last year. You don't hear from those guys because they're growing
hmm
businesses. And
Yep.
so I think that that's a miss that I'm not sure what the solve is, but I think that people are missing the boat if they think it's all bad.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think you have to just realize the different life cycle and stages. It's like Domino's, a Chick-fil-A, you know, Dave's Hot Chicken. They're just mature brands, and they've got with maturity comes de-risked, experiences and opportunities. But for an emerging brand, it's a startup still. There's a lot to be figured out. There's more risk in startups.
Yeah.
All right, to wrap up, I've got a few like quick hitter, one-liner type questions. Um, what's a habit or routine you've built that's had an outsized impact on your performance?
Um, I work out 6 days a week. Um, I cold plunge in sauna 4 to 5 days a week, if not more than that. These things allow me to deal with other things in my life that come across my desk that are harder in a more, um, you know, managed way. Um, it's like if you start your day getting in 37-degree water with an ice cube on the bottom of it, which I literally did this morning, like everything else kind of seems a little. Okay. Like,
I
and
can do
so
it.
yeah, and so like as a business owner, like you're gonna have ups and downs. Like that's what literally like fundamentally like what a business is gonna do. And like it's my job to just like stay even keel through it. And those things help me do that.
What is the best franchise category people ignore?
Oh, that people ignore. Um I don't know that people ignore it because then it wouldn't be a category.
Overlook.
Overlooked. I mean, I think I think there's a lot of multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees that would crush it in service.
Hmm.
And I think these multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees, and when I say that, I mean like people who have 16 Wendy's and 4 Hand and Stone massages and
Yep.
6 Massage Envies and like 4 Anytime Fitnesses. Like they have an enterprise that would be de-risked by then going into a service brand. And I think the reason they don't go into a lot of the service brands maybe is because they're emerging and they're waiting for something that's more established. But then the issue that they face is all the territories are sold and
Yep.
all the resales are going to go to existing franchisees. So they're already out of the loop.
Yep.
We've had a few multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees jump in early and they've been able to buy out other locations um, and scale. So I think if I was to say it's like multi-unit, multi-brand operators not looking at service as an option, and really kind of that's an overlooked opportunity.
Yep. I agree with that. All right, last two. If you weren't in franchising, what would you be doing instead?
Oh man, I can't even think of what else I would do. I'm like full circle back to media now. Because like I produce my podcast, I put out content every day, and I've like really started to enjoy the business of that. And while all of the business that currently is derived from content goes to Rolling Suds, I don't believe that content will never be like it will always be something that I do.
Hmm.
I enjoy sharing my story online. I enjoy synthesizing my thoughts into you know really digestible ways, and we'll continue to explore that part of my journey.
I love it. I'm excited to see how that evolves next year in 2026.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Best book or podcast that you would recommend to anybody listening?
Um. So anyone who's starting a business, I think they need to read The Hard Thing About Hard Things,
Love it.
by Ben Horowitz. Um, it just like it just teaches you how to be a CEO founder, or start to think about your role as that. And then Traction. We run our business on EOS, entrepreneurial operating system, and I recommend that everyone does that.
Hmm. I
Provides
love
a
it.
lot of clarity.
Two good recommendations. Well, Aaron, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and again, it was great meeting you back in Missouri a couple weeks or months ago. I don't even know how long ago that was at this point, but
Yeah.
thanks for coming on the show and sharing your story, your wisdom, and for all that you do for the franchise industry.
Thanks for having me. This has been great. Appreciate it.